Question number 1. Future payments must be discounted in a bond valuation in order to take into account what? Why do we discount the future interest and the future principal? Fact that the bond was sold at premium. Wrong. Whether the bonds were sold at premium, whether they were sold at discount, whether they were sold at par, we have to discount the bond. This is not the reason. C. Difference between the market rate of interest and the coupon rate. Well, this is not the reason why we discount the future cash flows related to interest and principal, not because they are different. We have to discount them so as to bring into the present value, and that's what we record in our financial statements. D. Expected interest rate on the coupon payments. We don't use expected interest rate on coupon payments. We use the rate prevalent at the date of issuance. Coupon rate is the rate at which the interest is paid, and the market rate, which we use for discounting, is the rate existing at the date when we issued the bond. So this is incorrect as well. Then why do we do that? Yes, time value of money. Future payments must be discounted in the bond valuation in order to take into account the time value of money, and that is your correct option. Next. A distinguishing feature of Black-Scholes option pricing model is, we discussed two models, Black-Scholes and the binomial model. What is the distinguishing feature? Black-Scholes model is adaptable to extreme stock price movement. No, we discussed that where there are extreme price movements, too high, too low, Black-Scholes model will fail. 2. The transaction costs are factored into the model. No, transaction costs are ignored in both models, binomial as well as Black-Scholes. The assumptions of dividend paying stocks. This can be incorporated. We discussed that the Black-Scholes model can be modified to incorporate the dividend paying stock. So this is not true. What is true for Black-Scholes model is that it requires European style options. This is a distinguishing feature of Black-Scholes model compared to the binomial model. Which of the following is an invalid assumption? Invalid assumption of the Black-Scholes option pricing model. No taxes or transaction costs, it's a valid assumption. It's true. This is one of the valid assumptions. Stock prices behave in a random manner. Yes, it is one of those assumptions. We discussed those assumptions. The stock pays no dividend. Yes, that's true. The options can be exercised anytime before maturity. Wrong. The option that can be exercised anytime before maturity is called the American option, and Black-Scholes only uses the European option. This is invalid assumption, hence our right answer. Okay, Conglomerate Incorporated is in the process of valuing its limited life intangible asset. Limited life intangible asset means an intangible asset that has a specific lifespan. Based on its due diligence, the company has obtained limited market data, mind it, the limited market data, on a recent comparable intangible transaction, and cash flow pertaining to these intangibles are difficult to estimate. Cash flows are difficult to estimate given the changing landscape of its industries. So there is limited data, cash flow calculations are difficult. So under the above circumstances, what is the best approach to value the company's intangible assets? We can't use income approach because cash flows are uncertain. We can't use the market approach because the market is in a situation where there is volatility, the market is in a flux, changing landscape of its industries. And we can't use any combination of these approaches because limited information is available. What you can do is to use the cost approach. This is most viable under the given circumstances. Hence, this is your right option. The controller of Banks Corporation hired an outside consultant to perform a valuation of company's fixed assets. Valuation of the company's fixed assets. Initially, the consultant focused on how company management estimates useful life of its fixed assets as well as related salvage. How do they do that? Which of the following would be consultants identify as the least acceptable method for determining accounting estimates of fixed assets. We just discussed a little while ago that market information, yes, it is considered for valuation purpose. Expected usage, yes. Historical information, yes. Industry consensus, there was no such thing. No. Fixed assets could be very different from one company to another. They are unique assets. So every company has its unique way of using it, different amounts spent on repairs and maintenance. So we can't take a single value for every company or single valuation for a class of companies in the same industry. This is the most inappropriate. A, C, D makes sense, but not B, and that is our right answer, because the question said, which of the following would be least acceptable method, and that is B. An analyst is reviewing a company's balance sheet and footnotes to determine how accounting estimates were factored into these line items. Which of the following would represent a questionable methodology? Which of the following would represent a questionable methodology for using the accounting estimates by the company? Let us move in the reverse order. Depreciation for property, plant and equipment, every firm does it. It is perfectly fine. Allowance for uncollectible accounts for account receivable valuation, this is perfectly fine. Every firm does it. Net realizable value for inventory, yes, other than LIFO and retail method, this is the method we use. It's perfectly fine. What is not fine is outcome of similar litigation settlement for contingent lawsuits. There are many lawsuits pending. We can't take all the lawsuits in the same way. Similar litigation settlement, each case is different. Loss and gain pertaining to each lawsuit is different, so we can't use the same approach for every litigation or every pending litigation. We can't use the same. Every litigation has its unique, peculiar situations, so we can't use a single method for everything. This is wrong. Okay. The next question says the primary difference between selecting the binomial Cox-Ross-Rubinstein model for valuing stock options versus the Black-Scholes. The primary difference between these two. It can be used for stocks that pay dividends without model modification. Correct. Black-Scholes model can be modified. This is true. This is half true. You can say 50% is correct. Let me just first tell you what I want to say. There are two models, binomial model and Black-Scholes model. How do they differ? Black-Scholes model uses European style options, whereas the binomial model can be used for American style options. Black-Scholes model assumes only one date where it is matured, whereas the binomial model means there is no issue any time before maturity option valuation can be calculated. There is no need for making any adjustments in the binomial model for dividends, but for Black-Scholes you may have to make dividend adjustments. So basically there are two differences. There is a time consideration between Black-Scholes model and binomial model and the dividend adjustment. If these two things can be combined in a single option given above, that would be the right option. Now let us see. It can be used for stock that pay dividend without model modification. That is true for this, but not for this as well. We can modify Black-Scholes model. The consideration of options over a period of time. Yes, Black-Scholes model cannot incorporate this because it only is applicable to those options that are European style, mature at certain point, only that. But the binomial model can be used for any option which can be exercised before expiry. So this is also a difference between these two. If we can find an option that combines these two, then that will highlight the true difference between Black-Scholes and binomial model. It factors into transaction cost but ignore tax is wrong. Both methods ignore taxes and transaction cost. C is incorrect. Then look at this. Option, why this option is correct? Because it incorporates A and B both. A is here, look at this, and B is here as well. The consideration of the option over time period, which is B, and it can be adjusted for dividend modification, which is A. So D option is most appropriate because it incorporates the two differences between Black-Scholes model. That's why D is the right answer. An accountant using the Black-Scholes model to value the stock options has input the exercise price of the option, the time to expiration of the option, interest rate, which of the following variable is also required. Put market price, call market price, wrong, because put market price and call market price, these are the two prices which the Black-Scholes model is trying to determine. So these are the end result, not the inputs. Discount rate is wrong because we use the interest rate, which is risk-free rate. Discount rate is incorrect. So what we need is the common stock price. That's the fifth input. There are 5 inputs, remember. Let me label all these if they are available. This is the first one, also called the strike price. Second is the time to expiration. Third is the risk-free rate. Fourth is the price of the underlying common stock in this case. And fifth one, which is not shown here, is the volatility called the standard deviation. That's the fifth element. These are the 5 inputs to Black-Scholes model, and that's all, gentlemen, what you need to remember. No calculations, because calculations are so complex that you might commit suicide on your exam day because it requires certain valuations to be used under different tables. So that's clearly beyond the scope of your CPA exam. Moving on. The controller of the theme parks incorporated is involved with initially approving accounting estimates for critical balance sheet accounts. Controller has approved certain accounting estimates for balance sheet items. This is itself questionable because controller is himself the one responsible for accounting. He doesn't set the accounting estimates or accounting policies. Let's move on. On a time permitted basis, ad hoc basis, need come basis, the controllers group responsible for establishing accounting estimates and accounting policies will then review a sample of accounting estimates each fiscal year for accuracy based on supporting documentation. The procedure in place for accounting estimates at this company would be best described as in which of the following. I find 2 weaknesses. First, this is beyond the controller's domain to establish estimates on his own or accounting policies on his own. Someone else should. And further, the review is done on time permitted basis, on ad hoc basis, not regular feature. These are the 2 weaknesses I find. So which of these options best describes the above situation? Inadequate, as there is no established regular review period. Partly true. We have identified 2 issues and we must select that option that takes in both. So this is true, but half true. That's why you need to read the information very carefully. Adequate, no, it's not adequate. Wrong. D, inadequate because the controller is only involved in initial approval of the accounting policies. Again, this is 50% true. So why don't we select the option that incorporate both of these and get us the 100% answer? Inadequate because of lack of approval, yes, and on estimates and no regular review periods. Both are incorporated, hence this makes C to be our correct option. Simmons Company issued 1,000 face value bond, 7% annual coupon rate. This is the stated rate, gentlemen. Remember that you will use to calculate the coupon amount. Matures in 5 years. That's the time to maturity. This is the stated rate. This is the face value. The market rate of interest at the time of issuance is 7.25. That's what you will use as the market rate for discounting purposes. Which of the following is a true statement regarding the bond at the date of issuance? First, A, a bond liability will reflect the market value on the balance sheet date. Wrong. Bond liability is recorded not at the market value, rather at the book value that incorporates the original issue price adjusted for premium or discount on issue. Wrong. The bond was issued at premium with more cash received than the face value. This is incorrect. Why? Because look at this. Our stated rate is 7%. Market rate is 7.25%. Since you are offering less rate than the market rate at the date of issue, so this is clearly a discount bond, not a premium bond. This is wrong. C, the issuer will receive $1,000 for each bond issued. Wrong. You will receive 1,000 only when the stated rate is 7% and the market rate is 7% as well. This is wrong as well. So surely there is no doubt it is D, but let us do the computation. The bond was issued at a discount with less cash received than the face value. Let us see the inputs we have. What we have input is the term is 5, n is equal to 5, right? Then the next element we need is the interest rate per period. Remember, it is 7.25, the market rate. This is called 1 upon Y in the financial calculator. Then we need to calculate the present value. The second element we need to input is the payment. Since the payment is made on the coupon rate, stated rate, 7% of 1000 is 70. Put negative 70 in PMT. The face value is 1000, that's going to be negative 1000 for FV. And once you enter these, you simply need to press CPT followed by PV, you will get the price of the bond. This is how we do in the financial calculator. I will also show you how you can solve it using your simple calculator. It will be a little longer, but you'll get the right answer. So your 5 represents the term of the bond, 7.25, 7.25. This represents the interest rate per period. 70 negative is the payment every year. And 1000 will represent the face value, the redemption value, the future value. Calculate CPT is equal to PV, that is 989.81. 989.81. This is what you got using your financial calculator. Let's say if you want to calculate using your conventional methods, what you're going to do, listen. PV is equal to, remember, you're going to make 70 payment in the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and in the fifth year, you're going to return the total amount 1070, right? So these are the payments, 5 payments of 70 each, and the fifth payment of 1000. So I've just written 1070. Remember, these are the payments calculated at the stated rate. Remember, discounting is done at the market rate. So the first discount factor is going to be 1.025. Next, 1.025 square, 1.025 cube, 1.025 4, 1.025 5. If you calculate this all, will be time taking, consuming. The result you will get will be 989.83. It's pre-calculated, so this is the amount. So whichever method you use, result would be the same. Select the one that is more convenient. And even if without calculation, we knew that it's D. We knew, but we just got it confirmed. Acme Company issues 1000 face value bond that pays an annual coupon of 6.5% and matures in 4 years. Assuming a market interest rate of 6% at the time of issuance, the bond's price is closest to. Now, listen, what we have is the term that is given as 4 years. 4 is equal to N. Interest rate we need to use for discount purpose is 6%. 6 is the interest rate per period. The payments, remember, are 6.5. Remember, coupon rate is calculated for payment and the market rate is used for discounting. 6.5 of 1000 gives you $65 negative. That's your PMT. And the face value is negative 1000. Once you are done, simply press CPT followed by PV. You will get the present value, the exact match. 4 is your term. 6 is your interest rate per period. 65 negative based upon 6.5% is your regular yearly payment, and 1000 negative is going to be your face value. Compute PV, it's 1017.322. Since you are making a higher coupon payment of 6.5, whereas the market rate is 6, so your bond sells at a premium 1017.33 approximately is your answer. So that gives you C to be the correct option. Justin Enterprises is attempting to value one of its product patents using the market approach. The balance sheet value of this patent is 35 million, but based on its review of similar patent sale, values are 32.5, 34, 36, and 39.3 respectively. Assuming that the company uses market median approach, what should be the value? First of all, what you should do is to ignore the extremes and take the middle two. If you go for the 32, this is the lowest, this is the highest, right? These are the two mid numbers. Take these down, 34.2 and 36.6. Add these two and divide them by 2. This will give you the median. This will simply give you the median. Add these up. Yes, 35.4 is the answer. C. All right. TMC Manufacturing Company had inventory valued 85 million on a LIFO cost basis. Remember, LIFO is only permitted under the US GAAP, and an appraised value of 86.5 million at the year end. Fine. This is the LIFO cost. This is the appraised value at the end of year, whichever is being discussed year end. The company determined that the replacement value of this inventory is 88.5 at the year end, but given the unique nature of its inventory, it could sell the inventory for $88 million to an industry buyer, excluding cost of 0.5 million to ship the inventory. Assuming TMC uses the NRV method to record the inventory on its balance sheet, what amount would be recognized under IFRS? Now, it's a good question. Let us spend some time on this question. Let's take US GAAP on one end and let's take the IFRS on the other end. I told you LIFO based inventory is only permitted under the US GAAP, and what we do, we take cost on the one end and we take three items on the other side. One of them is called the NRV, which is called ceiling. One is called the NRV minus normal profit margin, which is the floor. Another is called the replacement cost. Cost as given is 85 million. NRV is the final selling price, 88, less cost to sell. 88 minus 0.5 is 87.5. Okay. Then what we have the replacement cost given as 88.5. Replacement cost is 88.5. We have not been given the normal profit margin, which means we can't calculate this, which means you can't use the GAAP. That's why information is limited. Let's say for the sake of doing this question, so that we can make full sense out of it, let's say the net profit was given as 87.5 and it was given as 2.5. So that would given you 85 million. What we do under the US GAAP LCM rule, I'm doing it under the LCM rule. What we do under the LCM rule, we take the median of these three. This is too low, this is too high. This 87.5 would be the designated market price. You compare this designated market price with the cost. Since the designated market price is higher, so we let the inventory to stay at cost, which is 85 million. That's under the US GAAP. IFRS has a different approach. IFRS says that you keep cost at one end, which is 85 million, and you keep your NRV on the other. What is NRV? NRV is the final selling price minus cost to complete the sale, which is 87.5. Now, if you strictly follow the NRV method under the IFRS, cost versus NRV, whichever is lower, we find the cost to be lower. That's 85. That would have been the answer. But look at the question. Assuming that TMC uses the NRV method to record the inventory, inventory is shown at NRV irrespective what the market price is. So in that case, the value that you report on the inventory is 87.5, despite it's a violation what we have studied in FAR, that cost or NRV, whichever is lower, is to serve as the valuation method. So nonetheless, we are doing BC, which is not as much connected with the FAR. So we got our answer, 87.5 it is. Next, Rock Records Incorporated is attempting to value the copyrights to one of its artist album collections. Given the lack of comparable market information, the company, remember it's an intangible, the company decides to use the replacement cost approach, assembling the following cost data. We have the legal fee, which you should include materials and labor, yes, overheads, yes, production costs, yes, development costs, yes, opportunity cost, yes, discussed earlier. But admin and general cost, this is excluded. So if you add all these, this will give you the amount you can recognize on the balance sheet. What amount would the firm recognize on the balance sheet for these copyrights? Adding all these ups will give you a total of 6.2 million, and that would give C to be the correct option. And if you just scroll up, that's the right option. That completes your topic M7.